Last call for Super Smash Bros. Brawl.
Either show up in every episode or stop showing up altogether.
No? Fuck him?
Douchebag. So the objective of this channel is to go through every Sonic game. Brawl isn't really a Sonic game, but a game with Sonic in it. So it's kind of a gray area, but we did a playthrough of it. Might as well give it the last call treatment. God, I loved Super Smash Bros. When I was a kid. One of a few, I'm aware. I had the 64 version of the game when I was young and absolutely adored it. Then I went to my friend's house one day and he had Bowser unlocked and I was wondering, how the hell did he get Bowser in his game? Turns out more than one console exists. That was not a happy day for young Spiny. I remember one year getting a Nintendo GameCube for Christmas along with a copy of Animal Crossing and Super Smash Bros. Melee. Probably some of the greatest gifts I've ever received as a kid. Like, both of those games are probably in my top 4 hour-wise. Right next to Oblivion and Sonic Adventure 2. Melee was such a fun experience for me because I had no way of knowing who the unlockable characters were going to be. I lost my shit when Dr. Mario showed up for the first time. I know, I got excited over fucking Dr. Mario, but counter-argument, it was one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games. Who gives a fuck about Falco or Ganondorf? I want Mario in a different costume. Every new character reveal just got me more and more excited. I lost it when Mewtwo showed up. I loved the first Pokemon movie. Hell, I was even excited to see Pichu in there just because it was another Pokemon character. I didn't know who Mr. Game & Watch was, but I loved the idea of them adding a 2D character in, and started using him as my main once I had him unlocked. You know, another one of my favorite video games in the Nintendo 64 was Banjo and Kazooie, and 8-year-old me had no concept of a character owned by one company moving over to a different company, so surely he was going to be in Melee. Nope. Oh wait, yeah, no, he's in this one. Are they gonna add another one?
It's the exact same trailer as King.
Oh! I guess another character I wanted to see in there was Sonic, but I actually did not fall for that April Fool's joke that one magazine did. I don't know, something about the Sonic Adventure 2 model used in the gameplay paired with the Sonic Adventure DX model for the character selection, that just wasn't sitting right with me. Melee used original renders for the character selection screen, and I was such a big Sonic nerd I recognized the render they used. This was almost too logical for me. I was a dumb fucking kid. I once resetted my Animal Crossing game 100 times because there was this myth that Mr. Rossetti would send all of your villagers away if you did that. Why would I want all my villagers to go away? Well, I didn't, but I was so curious to see if it was real. Also, Camo Frog had that shit coming. Bottom line, me not falling for this was a testament to how unhealthy my Sonic obsession was. Because I pretty much believed every other video game myth ever created. L is real, alright. I really love the adventure mode of the tiny cutscenes you would occasionally get. I always tried to end that first level with a 2 on the timer so I'd get the Luigi cutscene. But I remembered thinking it would be really awesome if they expanded on this idea and did a full-blown story of all the Nintendo characters. Well, my wish would be granted one entry later, and then ignored for the remainder of the series. Hey, if bitching about Fang and Generations can lead to Sonic Team giving me what I want, maybe bitching at Nintendo will also go well for me. Super Smash Bros. Brawl introduced a bigger version of the adventure mode in Melee titled Subspace Emissary, which told a pretty incohesive story, but honestly it delivered on what you needed to see. Cutscenes where famous Nintendo characters interact with each other. It was about time the Ice Climbers and Lucario finally met. And hey, my boy Sonic actually made it into this one. I can't wait to see him engage with all the other characters in the story mode. Oh cool, he's in it for 10 seconds at the very end. You couldn't at least just give us some for the Great Maze? Like maybe a little bit of speed would have been nice for that section? Honestly, Sonic's scene is not only underwhelming due to him not interacting with any of the other characters, but it's just a disappointing ending as a whole. Subspace did all of its best stuff before the Great Maze. The Great Maze is without a doubt the largest part of the story mode, where the story and cutscenes are brought to a complete halt, and once you finally do beat it, the payoff is Sonic is here now. And then we have some nice scenic shots after you beat the final boss, that's it. I always thought it was kind of lame that we don't get to see most of the characters again in a cutscene after they're trapped at the very end. I always felt like Subspace was a really fun crossover until you made it to the very end of it. On a replay, it almost feels pointless to continue playing it once you make it to the Great Maze. It's not that fun of an idea gameplay-wise, and the payoff of the story is so weak. Maybe if nobody knew Sonic was going to be in this game, or he had some interactions off the other characters, this could have been big. But again, it's just him and Taboo, and the internet was really kicking at this point. I feel like most people playing this game for the first time were aware he was in it. My understanding of Sonic's minor involvement in the story comes from him being more of a last-minute addition to the game, but even then, a lack of Sonic isn't my biggest issue of Subspace. It's just that it kind of ends without really giving any of the other characters closure. It's not that big of a deal. Like I said, the story's kind of incohesive. You really are just there to enjoy seeing famous Nintendo characters interact with one another, but it just makes the Great Maze feel not worth it. Not worth it to me, at least. Subspace is interesting gameplay-wise. With Masahiro Sakurai being the creator of both the Smash Bros. Series and the Kirby series, the gameplay borrows a lot from Kirby. If this is news to you, this might be the first time you're watching a video about a Nintendo game. But I do really appreciate that while, yes, it is replicating Kirby's style more than anything, it does throw in a lot of homages to other Nintendo games. I think most notably, Donkey Kong and Metroid stages borrow a lot from the respective series. With Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, their levels are very inspired by Donkey Kong Country. While the layout is still essentially taken from Kirby, they do throw in a lot of obstacles that you would see in a Donkey Kong Country game, like the carts or the floating barrels. All the levels of Samus and Pikachu are like a watered-down Metroidvania, with some exploring and dead ends. You have to consider the layout of the stage a bit more when it comes to these two, and some backtracking is required. But again, it's a watered-down version. The game doesn't want to throw the player off too much, they do still follow one gameplay style more strictly than anything else. Going off of that, I can only assume that the early Pit and Mario stages take some inspiration from the first Kid Icarus game, a game that I've never played. A game that I have played, however, is the original Ice Climbers, and yeah, their stage certainly borrows from that too. Some series can't really be reflected in the gameplay, like Earthbound, Pokemon, Pikmin, or F-Zero are way too far removed from platformers, so their levels don't really reflect the gameplay of their respective series, but that's where the game can have a lot of fun with different settings or music. A video game is a pretty huge art project. It probably has more artistic choices than any other medium. Some games are simple and don't focus on plot too much. I'd say despite having a plot, Subspace is definitely not focusing too hard on the writing, but a game is the only medium that has the ability to use writing, acting, animation, music, backgrounds, effects, and then gameplay all into one complete package. Brawl has to consider a lot of this, as it's not just representing one beloved property, but almost all of one major company's beloved properties. I think the game does a pretty great job at blending these different universes together, and it goes beyond seeing cutscenes of different characters interacting. It's there in the small details of the gameplay too. Now, is Subspace perfect? No, but I think it's a project to appreciate. I remember clearing the whole thing in one night with my brother, staying up all night unlocking all the characters. It was great. I think one of the best things about Subspace, however, is it might be the one thing preventing Brawl from becoming completely obsolete. What does Brawl have to offer against the other Smash Bros. Games other than Subspace? I mean, I can think of some small features. I liked the demos and the stage builder, those were all fun, but from a gameplay perspective, Brawl did make some weird choices that the average player isn't really going to notice without it being pointed out, but once it is, yeah, it's hard not to see what people are talking about. Brawl is still fun, of course it is, it's a Smash Bros. Game, but now that we have 3 sequels that largely fix the problems people had with Brawl's gameplay, is there any other reason to return to Brawl other than Subspace? Well, let's take a look at the series as a whole real quick. Hey everybody, hope you're enjoying the new Last Call. We wanted to take a little break from that to show you the results of the best character on the show. We took a look at all the votes, and now we're going to reveal who is the best character on the show. Is it me? Is it a Gorky? Is it Dr. Howard? Well, let's find out. God damn it. It's Ignacio. Ignacio is the fan favorite. Fuck. To be fair, I think that would have been your reaction to a lot of people winning. You seem to hate like half the characters on your own show. Get out of my house, Dr. Howard. I'm not wrong, am I, Gorky? He's a very negative person.
Nie, masz rację.
64 is a little too slow paced for me nowadays, even though I do really see the charm in it. I like these models, I like the music and stages, I think the intro still might be my favorite of the entire series. I always liked the toy box aesthetic that the first game went for. I really wanted those plushies to be real when I was a kid. I think Melee is the best in terms of taking the most steps forward and the least steps back. The additions to the roster were significant, no one got cut, there were more and better maps, the adventure mode was a cool new addition, the game felt a lot better to control now. In comparison to Ultimate, I could see it being underwhelming nowadays, but I don't think I ever felt the same excitement for a sequel as I did with Melee. It just felt like such a drastic jump from the first one. A jump that I don't think we ever quite recreated. At least not for me. 3DS was honestly a great time. Having it for handheld was great, having newcomers such as Pac-Man and Mega Man was surreal, Smash Run was honestly a lot of fun, I got in a lot of hours with that. The lack of story mode was more understandable with it being the handheld port. Where this was kind of underwhelming was with the Wii U port. Smash Bros. For Wii U definitely favored using their animators for character trailers rather than any sort of story, and I guess I would be okay with that if they created a new mode that fit in as a worthy replacement, but they really didn't. Smash Tour fucking sucked. Honestly, I only got a Wii U for Mario Maker and Smash Bros. Mario Maker got my time with. Smash Bros. I really didn't. I took my 3DS to college with me every single day to play it with people on campus. I honestly found the Wii U version so bland. And I do think the 3DS port coming out first contributed to that a little bit. But yeah, there was a lack of new modes that kept things interesting for me. The new roster was cool to experience, but I already had that with the 3DS port. thought the game's main theme was really forgettable, like so much weaker than Brawl Melee's, a lot weaker than Ultimates while we're at it. This could be seen as a huge nitpick, but they didn't even give the game a real name. This just feels like the forgettable one to me. And it probably wouldn't feel this underwhelming with the release of Ultimate not long after it, which really felt like a perfected version of this game. I would say with all of that in mind, Smash Bros. For Wii U feels like the most obsolete version of the game. Ultimate having the best selection of characters and stages really made it the ideal Smash Bros. Experience for many. I think the game had potential to make Brawl obsolete with World of Light, but 1, even if it did do a big story, Subspace would still be its own thing, and 2, well, yeah, they didn't do a big story. There's an opening cutscene that's really neat, but they already showed as a trailer, and then a whole bunch of nothing until you beat it and get the final cutscene that is just about as interesting as Subspace's ending. I hated World of Light. I really did try to get immersed with it and have fun with it, but the lack of story was disappointing after it being hyped up as this new story mode, and the gameplay isn't really that fun either. At least Smash 4 had a new mode that was enjoyable on its own with Smash Run. Hell, I think I did have more fun with Smash Tour than I did with this. The only real enjoyment I had with World of Light was not knowing which character was going to show up next on this massive roster. That did enough to keep me curious enough to keep going, but it really wasn't that much. It was a watered down event mode. We didn't get levels, we did get a few bosses, but not enough to keep me going. Nah, Subspace is still a one-of-a-kind Smash Bros. Experience, which does give a reason to return to Brawl, although I think almost all of the Smash Bros. Games have something worth revisiting. 64 is very different from the others gameplay-wise. The movement was definitely refined in later entries, but if you preferred how the first one felt, no other game of the series can replicate it. Plus you have really cool things in the modding community with Remix, throwing in a lot of classic 64 characters that never quite made it to Smash Bros. Along with a ton of new stages and directs that were just as fun to watch as the old Smash Bros. Directs for Ultimate. I could definitely understand choosing Ultimate over Melee, but Melee is such a timeless experience. They really perfected the way this game controls on their second go, and anytime I take the old GameCube out, this is one of the games I'm putting in. Plus, it had a great adventure mode that never returned in quite the same way. The 3DS was a really cool way to play Smash Bros. On the go, and I might check it out again someday just to get another go of Smash Run. I will probably never play the Wii U port again, and Ultimate is probably the best version to play today, but it is missing some of the charm. It's missing some of what Melee and Brawl offered, with levels to explore, and oh yeah, let's not forget about the trophies being discontinued, what the hell. I don't think Brawl has a ton to offer to a modern crowd, but I can at least say it found a way to separate itself from the others. I don't know if I'll ever really want to replay Subspace again, but it did give me a reason to come back to the game 16 years later, so that's gotta be worth something.